This is the story of Robert Fratta, a former police officer who committed a heinous crime that shook the nation. In a shocking turn of events, Fratta was convicted of orchestrating the murder of his own wife, a crime that not only shattered a family, but also exposed the dark and twisted mind of a man who was once sworn to protect and serve. Join us as we unravel the details of this high-profile case and delve into the psychology behind Fratta's actions. Robert Fratta's story is tragic. He hired hitmen to murder his wife, a shocking event that led to his eventual conviction for capital murder. It's hard to reconcile the man he was with his actions. Robert Fratta was a police officer who worked for the Missouri City Police Department in Texas. He was born on December 25, 1956, and grew up in the Houston area. Fratta was married to Farrah Fratta, and the couple had 3 children. As soon as Farrah discovered Fratta's weird and perverted sexual demands, which included feces consumption for sexual gratification, the marriage quickly fell apart. Farrah filed for divorce from Fratta in March 1992 because she could no longer put up with the verbal, emotional, and sexual abuse he was inflicting on her. Fratta made it known to many individuals that he intended to see Farrah killed once the divorce process had begun. After an argument with his wife, he made remarks about putting some 9mm slugs into Farrah and mentioned murdering Farrah with his police colleagues. Fratta was an arrogant, resentful, and furious guy who thought the world revolved around him. During the investigation of Farrah Fratta's murder, Robert Fratta initially denied any involvement in the crime. However, detectives later found evidence linking him to the murder-for-hire plot. Actually, Fratta had a gym buddy named James Prydorski who testified that Fratta carried a gun on excursions to topless clubs, which didn't sit well with Prydorski. Fratta had asked several people, including gym buddies, women he met in a diner, and through online dating service, if they knew anyone who would be willing to kill his wife. Fratta became so desperate to find a contract killer that he pressured Prydorski, who was having financial problems, to do the killing. Later, Fratta hired Joseph Pristash to find a hitman to kill his wife. Pristash then hired Howard Guidry to carry out the murder. Detectives were able to obtain a confession from Pristash in exchange for a reduced sentence. In his confession, he named Fratta as the mastermind behind the plot. Guidry was also arrested, and both he and Fratta were convicted of capital murder and sentenced to death. During the trial, the prosecution presented evidence, including phone records, financial transactions, and eyewitness testimony, to further substantiate the charges against Fratta. Despite his claims of innocence, Fratta was found guilty and sentenced to death, while Guidry and Pristash also received the death penalty for their roles in the murder-for-hire plot. In summary, Robert Fratta attempted to cover up his involvement in the murder of his estranged wife by enlisting Joseph Pristash to find a hitman, which led to the involvement of Howard Guidry, a teenager who was paid $1,200 to carry out the murder. Detectives eventually caught a break in the case when Guidry was arrested for another crime and confessed to his role in Farrah's murder. Other evidence, such as cell phone records and surveillance video, helped tie Fratta and Pristash to the crime. At Wyatt's cafeteria, Fratta had supper with her and their 3 kids before taking them to a Catholic church in Humble, Texas. Farrah was terrified of her husband, but she didn't think he would murder her or have someone else do it. According to Howard Guidry's confession to Sergeant Danny Ray Billingsley of the Harris County Sheriff's Department, he and Joseph Pristash drove by Farrah's house and then to a nearby grocery store where there was a payphone. They tested the payphone with their mobile phone. Then, Pristash dropped Guidry off with the revolver and mobile phone at Farrah's house. Guidry then entered the house, found Farrah in the master bedroom, and shot her twice in the head. Robert Fratta was alleged to have made plans with Joseph Pristash to have Farrah assassinated, which was the basis of the state's case against Fratta. Both Pristash and Guidry were found guilty of Farrah's murder and remain on death row. Robert Fratta's conviction was based on the prosecutor's allegations that he made plans with Joseph Pristash to have Farrah assassinated. Fratta had 2 separate trials for this crime, one in 1995 and another in 2009. The first trial, which took place in 1995, resulted in his conviction and a sentence of death. However, some of the evidence used against him was deemed inadmissible, which led to the overturning of his conviction and paved the way for a new trial in 2009. During the second trial, which occurred in 2009, Fratta was once again found guilty and sentenced to death. This time, the prosecution presented evidence such as phone records and conversations between Fratta and the hitman he hired to kill his wife, as well as testimony from Fratta's accomplices. Despite his best efforts, Fratta attempted to appeal his conviction in 2018, claiming that he had received ineffective counsel during his second trial. However, his appeal was ultimately denied. The death warrant of Robert Fratta was signed by Judge Caprice Cosper on January 10, 2023. Robert Fratta's life came to an end as he was executed by a lethal injection. This was the culmination of a long and arduous legal battle that lasted for over 2 decades. Fratta's fate was ultimately sealed, marking the end of a controversial and tragic chapter in the criminal justice system.